2025-2026 season is fast approaching, as is the closure of the summer transfer window. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at how the squad is shaping up to look for the coming season. Because the reality is the expectation and pressure has absolutely risen. We are now club world champions. We are back in the Champions League. And this is where Chelsea fans want to be. We would like to see the team fighting on all fronts, and it's where the club is aiming to get to. So welcome to the Chelsea Campfire. I'm Sebastian North. And so what we're going to do here today is just take a little inventory of where the squad and the team is going into the new season. All right, so the first thing we're going to start with are the ins and outs, the sort of transfers that have already happened. We'll also talk about the ones that probably will happen before this transfer window closes. And then I want to talk a little bit about the makeup of the squad, the depth in certain positions, and if any other areas need to be addressed before we get started this season. And it's a crucial time because there are friendlies coming up this weekend. Bayer Leverkusen and AC Milan are on the schedule, and this is going to be a great opportunity to see how prepared this team is to go into the campaign. All right, so let's just start with the transfers that have come in. Obviously, we already saw Joao Pedro and Liam Delap. They definitely look like two very good signings at center forward. Then recently, we saw Jamie Gittins from Borussia Dortmund and Jorel Hato come in from Ajax. And then, of course, we have the three players that were purchased last year who have finally arrived. That is Dario Esugo, Estevao Willian, and Kendry Paez. Now, obviously, this is not the end of the transfer window for Chelsea. There will be more coming. I mean, Fabrizio Romano and David Ornstein have made that clear. Chelsea are not done bringing in players, but they need to have a little bit of a clear out first. So let's also talk about the guys that have left and will be leaving. We are known for selling quite well. I mean, Noni Madueke for 48.5 million. Almost double what we brought him for. Joao Felix, basically, we recouped the money we originally paid. Georgi Petrovic was basically doubled as well. Ishi Samuel Smith has gone to Strasbourg. I mean, there are quite a few that have gone to Strasbourg. And then, of course, Kepa Arrizabalaga to Arsenal for 5 million. Then there are some loans. Mamadou Sarr was bought by Strasbourg, immediately loaned back. Kendry Paez, not yet deemed quite ready, so he was sent on loan to Strasbourg, along with the giant teenage goalkeeper Mike Penders. A few other players moved on. Marcus Bettinelli has gone to Manchester City. Bashir Humphreys went to Burnley for an undisclosed fee. And Matisse Amugu, after having been signed from Saint-Etienne last year in the summer, has now been sold to Strasbourg. The benefits of multi-club ownership. So it's already a pretty good start, but there is still a fire sale that needs to happen here, and a lot of players look like they're going to be on their way out. First, we got a few that look really quite certain. Armando Broja and Leslie Ogochukwu seem to maybe going to Burnley. Carney Chukwuemeka is apparently very close to going to Borussia Dortmund. Keenan Dewsbury Hall seems like he'll be going to Everton. Renato Vega has been inching more and more towards a Juventus deal, and there still are a few others, but we don't quite know where they're going to end up yet. Christopher Nkunku, it seems like his time is up and he will leave, but you got to wait for a good bid for a player like that because he is quite expensive. Less so would be Axel Disasi, but he surely has no place in Maresca's first team, so I imagine he goes. Who knows what's going to happen with Nico Jackson? I would be really surprised if the club wanted to carry 3 center forwards, but if he does not want to leave the Premier League and no one stumps up enough cash, he might actually be staying with the club a little bit longer and actually trying to compete and fight for his place, which isn't the worst thing. Then if we look at more forwards, David Datro Fofana, who has really not had any positive loan spells, he's not really up to the level. He'll need to be sold probably for very little. So if we continue, you've also got Ben Chilwell and Raheem Sterling, almost relics from past era. Those two guys have really high wages, and at this point, you kind of just take whatever money you can get to get them off the books. Mark Gue seems like he'll be going on loan to Sunderland, straight loan, and since he only costs 5 million to bring in from Barcelona, if he has a half-decent season with Sunderland, he can be sold for like 3 times what the club bought him for. Now, the one that has been rumored that I'm really not excited about is Tyreek George. I understand the club is going after wingers and forwards, and so he is seeing competition for his spot grow, and obviously minutes becoming more limited, but I would really like to see him stick around because very similar to the Abramovich era, we would sell an academy product and then go and buy someone not as good for like 30-40 million. We'll see what happens, but those are most of the outs that still look like they'll happen, all to make room for 2 more players, at least from what we've heard. That would be Alejandro Garnacho and Xavi Simons. And in a few minutes, I'll get into what I think about those in particular. So now let's actually move on to the makeup of the squad. How does it look? Let's start in the back. Let's start with the goalkeepers. Look, Robert Sanchez, he did perform at the Club World Cup. He did pretty well. And so right now the club is looking at just keeping him because, well, there probably is not a better option for the money. Philip Jorgensen looks like a completely adequate backup. And then you got Gaga Slonina as the third because Bettinelli left. Not sure how I feel about that. Slonina is a young goalie. He probably needs to be playing, increasing his value, stock, profile. Now, a lot of Chelsea fans feel like we cannot win the league with Robert Sanchez in goal. And that is actually why the club really looked seriously at Mike Maignan over the summer, the French goalkeeper at AC Milan. To me, this is a top 5 goalkeeper in the world. He's absolutely outstanding, and I was so excited when I saw the club was in for him, but they did not want to pay $20 million. Turns out his contract runs out next summer, and I think the club is just like, hey, we'll take you. We will go ahead and make you the offer around 6 months from now, and maybe they will go in for him in January if things with Robert Sanchez really aren't working out. All right, now looking at the rest of the squad, from backline to midfield to forward, on the face of it, you look and you go, we're stacked, and then you're just not sure. At least that's the way it is for me. Please comment below. Tell me what you think about this squad. But if I look at the back line, we've got Marc Cucurella as the undisputed starter at left back, and Jorel Hato was brought in to really give him cover. That is an important area because there really was no one who was a direct replacement at left back for Cucurella. Sometimes it would be Reece James, sometimes it would be Malo Gusto, but this at least shores that up. In central defense, we've still got Benoit Badiashile and Levi Colwill as the left-sided, Tosin, Trevor Chalobah, and Academy graduate Anselmino. That makes for a pretty solid central defense, and then at right back you've got Gusto and Reece James. Don't forget Wesley Fofana has come back to training. Of course, I'm really not thinking about him too much because he's going to just need time to come back. He had surgery on a torn hamstring. That's a very serious injury. Also want to remember Josh Achampong. He was very, very good last season in the different roles he played, sometimes at right back, right center back. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the midfield, and there is one area of this that I'm still not sure about. So just to put it out there, Maresca obviously chops and changes things frequently. Sometimes we see Reece James invert into the midfield. Sometimes we see Reece James start in the midfield. We've also seen Cucurella and Gusto invert. When one stays in the back line, the other one comes in. There are a lot of different things that Maresca does, but there are a few constants. Those tend to be Moises Caicedo, Enzo Fernandez, and Cole Palmer. Now we have other options. Romeo Lavia, Andre Santos has now come in. He's more of an 8. Esugo is a defensive midfielder, but you don't really feel like he's the type of guy who can just pick up the slack if Moises Caicedo is out for any length of time. And that to me is the big problem. There is no replacement for Moises Caicedo if he goes down. Romeo Lavia is a very serviceable pivot in the midfield, but he's not the kind of tackler that Caicedo is. And as we know, Romeo Lavia is also not the most available player. So I'm really not sure what's going to happen here. Xavi Simons looks like he's going to come in, and he would be one of the other 10s along with Cole Palmer. That would probably allow Enzo Fernandez to drop a little deeper. There are a lot of things that can be done here, but yeah, I'm still a little bit concerned about that holding midfield position if anything happens to Caicedo. All right, then we move on to the attacks. So we obviously know that Joao Pedro and Liam Delap were brought in. Nico Jackson is still around, so center forward is covered. The wide areas are where I'm not entirely certain. Jamie Gittins, I really like him. I think he's a fantastic player that's been brought in. Ever since I saw him at Dortmund, he's really impressed me. So I think he's going to be on the left-hand side and will probably do a good job out there. Then you got Pedro Neto, who can really operate on either wing. But after that, there's not really that many players. And so you've got Tyreek George, who might be leaving. Esteval Willian, who's just come in, but he is so young and has no experience in the Premier League or in Europe. So we'll have to see how he lands and how he adjusts. But this is why Alejandro Garnacho is a very interesting choice. And actually, I like this idea. I do like Garnacho quite a bit. I mean, consider the fact that he's been at a dumpster fire like Man United the last couple years. The fact that he wants to leave does not mean he's a disruptive or bad kid. It means he sees that there is no reason to stay at that club any longer and he wants to get out because he's really been one of their only bright spots, considering he also scored against us us back in that crazy 4-3 victory at Stamford Bridge. I just get concerned because last season, this was the area of the team that was the least productive. The wingers were all right, but they just did not offer enough goals and consistent assists, and that needs to change this term if we're going to be successful in the Champions League or in the Premier League. So I really do understand the Garnacho one. We'll see what happens with Mykhailo Mudryk, but if Estevao needs to take more time to settle, Pedro Neto, for instance, isn't going, and Tyreek George gets sold, we're going to look really thin in those areas very quickly, and that would just be a massive shame. So I think wingers and holding midfield are the two areas I'm not totally certain about just yet. The squad is not yet perfect, but I have to say, this is the best that I've seen in this Boehly, Clearlake, Eghbali era. This is the least where it's just like random players who are good and young and talented, but you don't know how they'll fit in the system. This is starting to look more and more like players are brought in to fit exactly what Enzo Maresca wants. Not entirely sure about Xavi Simons. He's not really a winger. He's not really a forward. Resembles Christopher Nkunku in a lot of ways, which does concern me because Nkunku really did not have a place in this starting lineup. But we'll see how it goes, especially this weekend. So I will be doing tactical breakdowns of pretty much every game I can this season. They are very unique, high quality. I promise you'll enjoy those. I'm very much looking forward to the start of this season, and please follow me for the ride. We are just starting this channel. Hopefully by this time next year, we've blown up. Thanks for stopping by the Chelsea Campfire. I'm Sebastian North. Please like, subscribe, and definitely leave your comments below. Love to hear your opinions. Have a good one.